The morning Rhoda finally departed from her marriage, there were no tears streaming down her face. No screaming matches. No shattered plates. She methodically arranged her belongings, placed them in a single travel bag, and slipped out before Malik came back home. What stunned their community wasn't her exit, it was the reason behind it. Everyone considered Malik the model husband, devoted to his elderly mother, financially supportive of his younger siblings, utterly dependable. Nobody realized this same man had systematically drained his wife's essence until she became invisible within her own marriage. And nobody, including Rhoda herself, could have anticipated that the revelations awaiting her would shatter every assumption they held about duty, compromise, and kinship. Before we continue, I'd be grateful if you could help this channel by liking and subscribing. Your support truly matters. 10 hours before Rhoda's departure, she stood motionless in her kitchen, staring at a pot of stew that had grown ice-cold. The stove burner remained lit. She'd completely forgotten to switch it off. Her phone vibrated on the granite countertop. A text from Malik. Asterisk won't make it home early. Mother requires my help. Asterisk. Rhoda scanned it once. Then twice. She set the phone face down and released a quiet, hollow chuckle. Not because anything was amusing, but because it was entirely predictable. She turned off the burner and lowered herself onto the tile floor, spine pressed against the wooden cabinet, breathing carefully like someone struggling to keep their head above water. This had become her reality. Endless waiting, constant understanding, perpetual adjusting, muting her own voice, all in the name of matrimony. When Rhoda married Malik 9 years before, she believed partnership meant making sacrifices. She hadn't realized it would mean erasing herself completely. Malik embodied everything society praised. Calm-voiced, ambitious, the type of man mothers prayed their daughters would find. During their wedding celebration, his mother, Aya Risi, embraced Rhoda firmly and whispered, "My daughter, I struggled raising this boy. He means everything to me." Rhoda felt privileged in that moment. She beamed and responded, "I'll treasure him, Aya." She couldn't have known this vow would eventually consume her entire being. The initial year of matrimony was delightful. Malik phoned her during lunch hours. They shared laughter. They discussed future plans. But Malik also contacted his mother every single morning. Initially, Rhoda found it admirable. He's devoted to his family, she told herself. Then came the financial requests. Minor ones at first. Mother needs medication money. Bola's tuition is short. Femi needs assistance until he secures employment. Malik consistently said the same phrase. Family comes first. Rhoda consented. Every single time. The issue wasn't that Malik assisted his relatives. The issue was that he never paused, and he never consulted her. Money flowed out of their household like an open tap. Rhoda began tracking every coin while Malik kept making electronic transfers. When she gently expressed concerns, Malik would exhale deeply. "Why are you women always obsessed with money?" She ceased speaking up. When Femi relocated into their residence for a couple of weeks, Rhoda prepared meals, maintained the home, and smiled. Weeks transformed into months. When she raised objections, Malik erupted. "Must you complain about everything? That's my blood." That evening, Rhoda wept silently beside him while he slumbered peacefully. The day she lost her pregnancy was the day something within her shattered irreparably. She was hemorrhaging and isolated in the hospital ward. Malik wasn't present. He was at his mother's residence repairing a damaged pipe. "I apologize," he said over the phone. "Mother is elderly. I couldn't abandon her." Rhoda gazed at the sterile white hospital wall and nodded slowly. She didn't protest. She didn't raise her voice. She simply ceased having any expectations whatsoever. Years drifted past. Her close friends noticed the transformation. "You've gone silent," one of them remarked. Rhoda smiled weakly. "I'm managing." But she wasn't managing. She was hollow inside. Malik interpreted her silence as contentment. "At least she's finally matured," he told acquaintances. At home, Rhoda began secretly saving modest amounts from her hairdressing appointments. gradually, discreetly. She didn't understand what she was saving toward. She only understood she needed an escape route. Then arrived the Saturday that altered everything. They were scheduled to attend her niece's wedding celebration together. Rhoda had borrowed an outfit. She positioned herself before the mirror, forcing enthusiasm. Malik entered, already dressed in his traditional attire. "Mother just telephoned," he announced. "Bola's daughter is unwell." Rhoda swallowed hard. "We can visit after the ceremony. It won't be lengthy." Malik's expression hardened. "Why are you behaving this way?" "What way?" she inquired softly. "Competing with my family." Her chest constricted. "I'm not competing," she said quietly. "I am your spouse." Malik laughed, not cruelly, just dismissively. "You're being overly sensitive." He departed. Rhoda settled onto the bed in complete silence. That was the instant she understood. Not that her marriage was troubled, but that it had already expired. That evening, Malik returned late. He didn't observe the packed bag concealed beneath the bed. He didn't notice the calmness on Rhoda's face. He didn't notice that she had already made peace with departing. What he couldn't have known, what nobody knew, was that Aya Risi had been concealing something for years. Something that would soon emerge. Something that would explain every pattern. Something that would devastate Malik entirely. And when Rhoda finally walked out of that residence the following morning, she wasn't fleeing from her husband. She was walking toward the truth. A truth that was about to detonate. She exited the house shortly after dawn. The streets of Abadan remained hushed, the type of quiet that amplifies every footfall in your mind. Rhoda carried only one modest bag and her purse. Nothing else. She didn't glance backward because if she did, she might reconsider, and she couldn't afford to reconsider. Malik returned to the house that evening feeling exhausted but fulfilled. He'd spent the entire day managing errands for his mother, purchased her medications, repaired a broken door hinge, provided money for groceries. As he unlocked the door, he smiled. "Rhoda, I'm here." No response. He dropped his keys and walked into the bedroom. The bed was immaculately arranged. Too immaculately. That's when he observed it. The vacant closet. His heart lurched. "Rhoda," he called again, louder this time. He rushed to the dining area and spotted the envelope. His hands trembled as he unsealed it. The words inside weren't loud. They were calm. Too calm. Malik, I have attempted. I remained longer than I should have. I waited for circumstances to change. I'm not departing because you're malicious. I'm departing because I'm no longer breathing inside this marriage. Please don't search for me until you're prepared to hear the truth. Rhoda *. Malik sank into the chair. This wasn't how circumstances were supposed to unfold. Rhoda was patient. Rhoda understood him. Rhoda always waited. Or so he had assumed. His initial instinct was fury. How can she simply leave, he muttered. After all this. Then fear followed. What would the community say? What would his mother say? He grabbed his phone and dialed Aya Risi immediately. "Aya," he said, his voice strained. "Rhoda has left the house." There was a pause on the other end. A lengthy one. "Left?" Aya Risi asked slowly. "Left how?" "She packed her belongings and left," Malik said. She didn't even argue. Another pause. Then Aya Risi exhaled deeply. "Come to the house," she said. "We need to discuss something." That sentence made Malik uneasy. Aya Risi never said, "We need to discuss something." Rhoda, meanwhile, was seated in a modest guest room at her friend Bimp's apartment. Bimp observed her quietly. "You're certain about this?" Bimp finally asked. Rhoda nodded. "I'm exhausted." Bimp reached for her hand. "What occurred?" Rhoda stared at the wall. "Nothing," she said. Then she laughed bitterly. "That's the problem. Nothing ever occurred." Back at Aya Risi's residence, Malik sat on the edge of the fabric sofa. Aya Risi poured him tea with trembling hands. "You understand," she began. "When your father passed, everything fell on me." Malik nodded. "I know, Aya." "I struggled," she continued. "I pleaded. I wept. I sacrificed." "I know," Malik said again, impatience creeping into his tone. Aya Reese looked at him carefully. Do you? He frowned. Aya, what is this about? Rhoda has left. Aya Reese exhaled slowly. There are certain things I didn't disclose to you, she said. Malik's chest tightened. Things about your marriage, she added. Malik sat upright. What do you mean? Aya Reese stared into her cup. I instructed you to always prioritize family, she said. I pushed you to put us first. Malik nodded. Because that's proper. Aya Reese's lips quivered. But I knew what it was doing to your wife. Malik froze. You knew? She nodded slowly. She came to see me. Malik's heart pounded. When? Multiple times, Aya Reese said quietly. She pleaded with me to speak to you. Malik stood abruptly. And you didn't inform me? Aya Reese finally looked up. I told her to endure. The word struck him like a physical blow. You told her to endure? Malik repeated. She is a woman. Aya Reese said weakly. That is what women do. Malik felt something twist inside him. That's it, he asked. You watched my marriage perish and said nothing? Aya Reese opened her mouth to speak. Then her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and stiffened. Malik noticed. Who is that? He asked. Nobody, she said too quickly. Malik reached for the phone. Aya. She pulled it away. Leave it, she snapped. Malik stared at her. In his entire life, his mother had never spoken to him like that. Something was wrong. Profoundly wrong. That night, Malik couldn't sleep. Aya Reese's words kept replaying in his mind. Asterisk, she pleaded. Rhoda pleaded. Asterisk. For the first time, Malik wondered how many silent cries he had ignored. The following morning, Rhoda received a call from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something urged her to answer. Hello, Rhoda. A woman's voice said. It's Aya Reese. Rhoda closed her eyes. Yes, Aya. I need to see you, Aya Reese said. There are things you need to understand. Rhoda hesitated. I'm exhausted, Aya. I know, Aya Reese replied softly. But what I'm about to reveal to you, it concerns why your marriage was never going to survive. Rhoda's heart raced. What do you mean? Aya Reese swallowed audibly. There is something about Malik's father, she said. Something I concealed. Rhoda's breath caught. Something that shaped everything, Aya Reese continued, including how Malik treats women. Silence filled the line. Then Rhoda whispered, What did you conceal, Aya? Aya Reese didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Malik is not who you think he is. The line went silent. Rhoda stared at her phone, trembling. Malik, at the same moment, stood outside his mother's room, listening as she wept quietly inside. For the first time in his life, both husband and wife were standing on opposite sides of the same truth. And when that truth finally emerged, it would destroy more than just a marriage. It would destroy the image of a mother, a son, and the story everyone had believed for decades. If this story is touching your heart, please pause for a moment and tap the like button. It helps the story reach someone who may need to hear it today. Share this video with a friend, a sister, or anyone who understands what it means to love and lose yourself. And if you're enjoying stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. More powerful stories are coming. Asterisk, asterisk. Rhoda didn't sleep that night. Aya Reese's words kept echoing in her head like a relentless drumbeat. Malik is not who you think he is. She sat on the edge of the mattress at Bim's apartment, staring into the darkness. Every memory of her marriage began to reorganize itself, like pieces of a puzzle she'd been forcing into the incorrect configuration for years. By morning, she knew one thing with certainty. She had to hear the truth. They met at Aya Reese's residence that afternoon. Rhoda nearly turned around at the gate. The house appeared the same, quiet, familiar, heavy with memories, but her legs carried her inside before fear could halt her. Aya Reese sat in the living room, smaller than Rhoda remembered. Older, weary. Malik wasn't there. That surprised her. You came, Aya Reese said. Rhoda nodded. You said I needed to know something. Aya Risi gestured for her to sit. Her hands trembled as she folded them together. For years, she began slowly, I've been terrified of this moment. Rhoda waited. When I married Malik's father, Aya Risi said, I believed I was fortunate. He was respected. People admired him. She laughed bitterly. But inside the house, he was a different person. Rhoda felt a chill. He controlled everything. Aya Risi continued. Money movement, words, silence. If meals were delayed, he punished me with coldness. If I spoke excessively, he reminded me of my position. Rhoda swallowed hard. He loved his mother the same way Malik loves me, Aya Risi said quietly. Blindly. Completely. Rhoda's chest tightened. When he became angry, he never raised his hand. Aya Risi went on. But he destroyed you gradually. With neglect. With comparison. With silence. Rhoda's breath came shallow. By the time he passed, Aya Risi said, tears streaming down her face, I had forgotten who I was. Silence filled the room. Rhoda finally whispered, what does this have to do with Malik? Aya Risi looked up, her eyes red. Everything. Malik grew up observing that marriage. He saw his father ignore his mother's pain. He saw his grandmother's voice rule the household. And without realizing it, he learned one lesson exceptionally well, that a woman's role was to endure. That is why, Aya Risi said, when you complained, he didn't hear you. He only heard defiance. Rhoda's heart ached. But why push him to choose you over me? She asked softly. Why encourage it? Aya Risi wiped her tears. Because I was terrified, she admitted. Terrified that if he loved you completely, he would abandon me emotionally the way his father abandoned me. Rhoda stared at her. So you sacrifice me, she said quietly. Aya Risi bowed her head. Yes. The words sat heavy between them. At that precise moment, Malik was sitting in his vehicle outside the house. He had arrived early, and he had overheard everything. Every single word. His hands gripped the steering wheel as his world fractured open. His mother had shaped him, trained him, manipulated him, and he had destroyed his marriage in the process. For the first time in his life, Malik felt genuine anger toward his mother. Inside the house, Rhoda stood. I loved your son, she said calmly. I still care about him. But love is not meant to erase someone. Aya Risi nodded, sobbing. I know, she whispered. That is why I asked you here. She reached for a folder on the table and pushed it toward Rhoda. What is this? Rhoda asked. Evidence, Aya Risi replied. Of the lie I have been living. Rhoda opened the folder. Her hands trembled. Inside were hospital documents, dates, names, a medical diagnosis. Rhoda's heart pounded. What does this mean? She asked. Aya Risi spoke through tears. Malik's father didn't pass suddenly, she said. He took his own life. Rhoda froze. He couldn't live with what he had become. Aya Risi continued. And, before he passed, he told me one thing. Rhoda's voice shook. What? That if Malik ever learned the truth, it would destroy him, Aya Risi whispered. So, I raised him to never question family, to always protect me, to never examine things too deeply. Rhoda closed the folder slowly. Everything made sense now. The control. The guilt. The silence. The misplaced loyalty. The door opened. Malik walked in. Both women turned. His face was pale. I heard everything, he said. Aya Risi gasped. Malik. He raised his hand.
No, Aya.
Please. He turned to Rhoda. I am sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I thought I was doing the right thing. Rhoda looked at him for a long moment. I know, she said softly. That's what makes it so painful. Malik stepped closer. Can we repair this? Rhoda shook her head slowly. Some things, she said, are not broken. They are finished. Malik collapsed into a chair. Aya Risi wept openly. Days passed. News spread. People whispered. Some blamed Rhoda. Some praised her courage. Malik started therapy. For the first time, he began unlearning the lessons that ruined his marriage. Risi fell ill shortly after. Loneliness finally caught up with her. Rhoda visited her once, not out of duty, but for closure. Months later, Rhoda stood in her own modest apartment in Yaba, sunlight filling the room. She smiled more now, laughed freely. She hadn't remarried. She wasn't in a rush. One evening, her phone buzzed. A message from Malik. Asterisk, I finally understand. I hope one day you forgive me. Asterisk. Rhoda typed a reply, already have. She placed the phone down and looked out the window. She hadn't walked away because she hated him. She walked away because she chose herself. And that choice saved her life. The truth Rhoda thought she had uncovered was only the first door. Behind it was another one. And when that door finally opened, it changed the meaning of her departure forever. 3 months after Rhoda left the marriage, life settled into a strange calm. She had her own modest apartment now in Yaba. Nothing extravagant, just clean walls, quiet nights, and a peace she hadn't known in years. She woke when she wanted. She ate when she was hungry. She slept without waiting for footsteps at the door. People still talked. Marriage isn't easy. She should have endured. What about forgiveness? Rhoda listened, smiled, and said nothing, because there were things she hadn't told anyone. Things even Malik didn't know. One evening, as rain tapped softly on her window, Rhoda received a message from an unfamiliar number. Asterisk, good evening, Rhoda. This is Dr. Adeyemi. We need to talk. It's important. Asterisk. Her heart skipped. She knew that name. Dr. Adeyemi was the physician who treated her the day she lost her pregnancy. Her hands trembled as she replied. About what, sir? The reply came quickly. About something I should have told you years ago. Rhoda felt the room spin. They met the following day at a quiet cafe in Acacia. Dr. Adeyemi looked older, heavier with regret. I've carried this for a long time, he said, stirring his tea. And when I heard you left your marriage, I knew I could no longer stay silent. Rhoda swallowed. Please say what you need to say. He took a deep breath. The miscarriage you had, he began, was not natural. Rhoda froze. What do you mean? Dr. Adeyemi's voice was low. The stress levels in your body were dangerously elevated. Prolonged emotional neglect can cause severe damage. Rhoda felt tears burn her eyes. There was more, he continued. You were pregnant again. The words hit her like thunder. No, she whispered. That's not possible. You didn't know, he said gently. You lost both pregnancies within weeks of each other. Rhoda's hands shook violently. You were advised rest, he added. Emotional stability. Support. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. Support, she repeated. Dr. Adeyemi nodded sadly. If you had stayed in that environment, it could have cost you your life. Silence swallowed the table. In that moment, Rhoda understood something terrifying. Leaving didn't just save her happiness. It saved her life. That night, she cried for the children she never held. And then she forgave herself for leaving completely. Meanwhile, Malik was unraveling. Therapy had opened wounds he didn't know existed. For the first time, he questioned everything. Why he felt guilty choosing himself, why he felt responsible for his mother's happiness, why his wife's pain always sounded like noise to him. One afternoon, while cleaning old documents at his mother's house, he found a brown envelope hidden beneath a cabinet. His name was written on it. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside were letters. Letters written by his father. Letters he was never meant to see. Malik, if you are reading this, then I am gone. I was not a good husband. I learned too late that love without empathy is cruelty. I treated your mother like an obligation, not a partner. And I see myself in you. If you don't unlearn what you observed, you will destroy the woman you marry. And you will call it responsibility. Asterisk. Malik dropped the letters and broke down. For the first time in his life, he cried like a child. That evening, Malik drove to Rhoda's apartment in Yalba. He didn't call ahead. When she opened the door and saw him, she knew something had finally broken inside him. I know now, he said hoarsely. She stepped aside and let him in. He told her everything. The letters, the realization, the regret. Then Rhoda told him her truth, about the pregnancies, about the doctor's words, about how close she came to losing everything. Malik collapsed to his knees. "I didn't know," he sobbed. "I know," Rhoda said gently. "That's the tragedy." Ayarisi passed quietly 6 months later. Not alone, but with a heart full of regret. Before she passed, she asked to see Rhoda one last time. Rhoda went. Ayarisi held her hand weakly. "I stole your life," she whispered. "Please forgive me." Rhoda squeezed her hand. "You didn't steal it," she said softly. "You showed me how precious it is." Ayarisi smiled and closed her eyes. Years later, Rhoda stood on a stage at a small women's conference in Lagos. She had started speaking, sharing her story, not to shame anyone, but to free someone. She looked into the audience and said, "Love that asks you to disappear is not love. Family that costs you your life is not loyalty. Sometimes walking away is not failure. It is survival." The room was silent. Then applause erupted. Malik watched from the back. He had changed, but some losses never return. And he understood that now. As he watched Rhoda walk confidently off the stage, he finally accepted the truth. She didn't leave too early. She left just in time. And that decision rewrote every story they thought they knew. If this story spoke to you, please like this video. Sharing it could give strength to someone who feels trapped and unheard. Subscribe to this channel for more real, emotional stories that reflect our lives and our truths. Thank you for watching. Your support keeps these stories alive. ****.